Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to day 2, Manifesting Abundance Through Your Life Purpose Accelerator. That means we are amplifying our speed, we are collapsing time, and we are jumping into our new life. What perfect timing. The new moon, or any moon really, is extremely beneficial in helping us to do this. So it really is a perfect time. So how did you feel yesterday? Did you struggle with the request to post "I am the one"? Was it emotional? Did it bring up a lot within you? Did you happen to notice maybe how your body responded as you ask yourself to step into the power and authority that is gifted to you? Was it difficult to say "I am the one"? How did your body respond? Did your stomach turn over? Did your shoulders get tense? Did you swallow? What fears came up? Because our body is speaking to us, and it can be difficult to own our power. And we've heard that saying that we don't really fear all the things we think we fear. Ultimately, we fear our power. But I will tell you, I've heard a lot of these sayings and didn't really fully understand them at first. It wasn't until I stepped into it and I felt it firsthand that I finally knew exactly what these things meant. And I'm telling you, as you heal, as you remove these blocks, as your gifts come online, as you step into and realign to who you were originally made to be, it can be shocking how powerful we are. And it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It is a very, very beautiful thing. So I just have to check one thing, make sure we're live, no issues here. Yes, all good. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability. And thank you for being willing to be seen. And it wasn't just for me. This is for your soul family. Welcome to the soul family, by the way. You are a beautiful part of this collective whole, and we are family. There's a reason why you were drawn here, and I'm excited for you to be here. So thank you again for your vulnerability. Thank you for your authenticity and the willingness to step out of your comfort zone, right? So really ask yourself, what was the biggest thing that you learned yesterday? What was the biggest aha moment? What stood out to you as your biggest takeaway? Did you feel a shift? Did you feel the light bulb moment? Did you feel something in your body that said, finally, now I understand, right? Drop it in the comments. What landed for you? What aha moments can you share with others? Because as you are willing to be seen, as you are willing to speak your truth, you are helping to raise others as well. Lightworkers are coming online like never before, and that requires us to be seen. We are needed to create the new earth. We are all in this together. We are family. And when we allow ourselves to be seen, it helps support the greater whole, especially when you share your insights or what you are receiving or even what you're struggling with. It helps to amplify the group and your family, your brothers and sisters here on this journey. Although we have mostly women, there is a man that sneaks in every now and then, right? It is important for us to love on each other and to support each other. And when we realize that we are the one, we give permission and power and authority to others to take their power and authority back. We give them permission to be the one for themselves, right? Too many of us play small because of how it makes us feel when we shine brightly and others look at us like we're strange. But we're not doing anybody any favors. We are only enabling the dampening of their light. And so we want to encourage people to shine brightly, just like we are learning to do ourselves, right? We want to help people wake up. So when we have to ask ourselves the question, am I the one? If I am the one and I allow others to be the one for themselves, then really what can stop us? As I give myself permission to be the one, to have the power and authority in my life to overcome these love blocks, to step into my purpose, to shine brightly, to be seen, I have to remember I'm giving permission to others to do the same. So if we are the one for others and that helps others, why are we still struggling, right? Are we truly shining, for one? And are we really understanding what's going on inside of us? It's in the body. This is the trick, is it's in our subconscious, it's in our rearview mirror, in our blind spot, and it's difficult for us to see. And so we will ask ourselves, why do I struggle? Why do I struggle so much? Why do I struggle to claim my abundance birthright? We have not claimed it because we don't truly believe that we deserve it. We don't believe that we are the one. And we don't believe that it's safe to even have it. We believe that we have to earn it or work hard for it. And at a core cellular level, we have not embodied the alignment to our beliefs around it. So we have to ask why. What is the reason that we would not claim it? Is it because of the question, what if I'm not the one? What if I don't have a life purpose? What if I'm too bad or wrong or broken or somehow inherently flawed? What if I'm the exception to the rule? What if I don't have what it takes to hold the energy? What if I fail? It's these fears and disbeliefs and the questioning that cause the resistance within us. These doubts are what hold us back because we are afraid it won't work for us. So do you see where you might still have those beliefs that it might not work for you? Or maybe you're not the one, or maybe you're the exception to the rule. So we have to ask ourselves, and again, another question. I want to acknowledge that I ask a lot of questions because we remain as king when we ask questions, right? What if it doesn't work for me? It's the only reason that we don't try to get what we want. It is our greatest fear. But what if something good happens? What if you were just willing to try? What if you were willing to try more than one time? What if we just went for it? What if we just acted as soon as we received the guidance? What if we kept trying and never quit? What if we choose to trust ourselves? And what if we choose to believe we are the one? When we declare and command it into our lives, it has no choice but to come. That's when there is not anything that can stop us. So do you feel the resonance of the truth in your body? Do you remember the activity we did yesterday, feeling that full body yes? What if we recognize that the first thought or idea or inspiration that comes is the divine inspiration? Everything that comes after that is just the voice of fear and ego and trauma. What if we don't allow space and time for that voice to come in? Don't allow us to talk ourselves out of it. What if we didn't wait or think about it? What if we didn't have to be ready? Have you ever struggled with overthinking? Overthinking is the problem that we all very commonly share. And it's because we tell ourselves we have to get ready, or we have to be prepared, or we have to be good enough, or we have to be qualified. But we have to accept that we'll never fully be ready. We'll never really be truly prepared. And we can get ready at we think we can get ready at the level of the mind, but really we can't. We can never solidify a plan all in our head and be fully, completely ready without action. We'll never be able to solidify a plan that feels good enough simply by thinking about it. Clarity comes from action, especially when we're dealing with the unworthiness wound. Now, I'm not a big fan of the bootstrap or pushing yourself through things that your body, right, your nervous system gets activated and says that's not safe. That tells us there's trauma in the body, and we have to work with the body to remove those traumas and blocks so that our body can get on board. Yes, a little bit of nervousness is normal when we step into something new. But if we are feeling that complete shutdown, I just can't do it, then it's time to work with the body. Somatic healing therapies like trauma spotting work. I will get into that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So we really just want to look at these thoughts that come up, right? We think, well, if I really want to have a beautiful relationship, I might also have to risk getting hurt. Or if I want to have a partner in my life, I have to be prepared to carry extra weight. Notice those are limiting beliefs. It doesn't mean that love hurts. We've made meaning out of that from previous situations, but it's not necessarily true. Nor does having a partner in your life mean that it should be extra work. In fact, a healthy partner will contribute to your life. You can count on them, and they will make your life easier. Notice that we might ask ourselves or say to ourselves, I really want to start a business, but what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm embarrassed? I really want to be free, but what if I end up stuck again? I really want to try, but what if I'm disappointed? What if? And I think most of all, the most common one I see in my clients is it safe to have hope? That a very common trauma response that applies in many different areas is this tendency to assume the worst and then expect the worst and prepare for the worst so that when the worst comes, we are not caught off guard. And somehow we think that that prevents our pain or keeps us safe. But notice in that we assume the worst and we expect the worst and we prepare for the worst, we have created the worst. It does require faith and stepping into hope. That fear of what if it won't work? What if it doesn't work for me? Means we have one foot out the door in the old and one foot in the new, and we're split focus. We cannot create something we desire with that type of mentality, right? We never really had a chance because we were just assuming otherwise. The real truth is that we have to leave that disbelief behind. We have to leave the fear behind, and we have to believe it will work for us. The single most important thing in history is the belief that it will work. Belief in general. Our belief is everything. Our belief shapes our reality. Our belief is combined with our focus and attention can create worlds. We are that powerful. So are you ready to choose to believe? Just believe that it might be possible. Infinite potential all around you, right? The truth is that all strategies work in the right energy. The energy of I am the one. I'm the one that's going to make this work. And when we claim that, of course it's going to work. It's the belief that it might not work that gets in the way. Everything we create stems from that place. From our beliefs come our thoughts. From our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results. The cycle reaffirms our beliefs. And so if we're starting at a negative place, that's where we're going to end. From a neuroscience perspective, the brain has to match in chemistry the pictures that we feed it. When we choose, and it is a choice, to assign a negative meaning to something, we are telling ourselves a story. We're telling ourselves that something is bad or wrong. We create this chemical cocktail in our body filled with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And that creates the sensation in the body that becomes your frequency and your vibration. Energy is emotion, energy in motion. Our frequency and our vibration is our attraction point. This is how we manifest. So I want to repeat that because it can seem difficult or convoluted and yet pretty simple once you understand it. We start with a belief, and many times that belief comes from childhood or some sort of experience where we decided something. We made meaning of a situation, and we determined that going forward, this is always going to be the belief or the general mode of operation. From there, those beliefs are stored in our subconscious brain. And anytime you have this external trigger that looks something like what your brain has identified as similar to that previous situation, it then conjures up all of these thoughts based on that belief. And so your brain has to match in chemistry the pictures you feed it, or the beliefs, or the words you choose based on those beliefs. And if it's negative, from there, your whole body is flooded with stress hormones. And so you will feel tense, you will feel nervous, your palms might sweat, your heartbeat might go fast, your shoulders might tense. Sometimes people feel it in the jaw, a lot of tension there, pressure. That's the stress hormones flooding the body. That is your emotion. Emotion is different than feeling. Emotion is a bodily response. And from there, that is your emotion, your energy in motion. That is your frequency and your vibration. That is what's going out into the world and becoming your attraction point. And so you're calling more of that into you. Does that make sense? If anybody has questions on that, let me know. We can definitely address that in the Q&A on the 4th day. So this is why we have to raise our vibration. This is why we have to manage our frequency. It's why we have to calibrate and attune to the frequency of abundance and to the highest potential, authenticity. Did you know that they used to think that love was the highest frequency or vibration? Authenticity actually is scientifically proven and tested. So when we are living in fear or these old trauma responses, we are very much inauthentic because we're blocking and we're hiding. It's authenticity and the frequency of abundance and sufficiency and more than enough that is the attraction point for your abundance birthright, right? The biggest challenge for spiritual people who've experienced a difficult life so far is that our beliefs stem from the unworthiness wound or that trauma in childhood. They can be very rigid core beliefs like somehow I'm bad, or I'm weak, or I'm unlovable, I don't deserve it, I'm stupid, I'm powerless. Worst of all, at the bottom of it all is somehow worthlessness. Does that sound familiar to you? I know it can seem like, oh, I don't think that about myself. I don't really believe that. But again, we're dealing with subconscious beliefs. If we're lucky, we can recognize our value and worth, both at a conscious level and a subconscious level. But sometimes we struggle to see the value and worth in ourselves. And oftentimes that comes along with struggling to see value and worth in others. And it can feel as though the world is unsafe, or we can't trust anyone or anything. The fear of being hurt again causes the ego to rage, right? It wants safety. It wants familiarity. We create a habit of thinking primarily about ourselves excessively. And for anybody who struggles with sort of that focus too much on themselves, this is a common trauma response, again, because we're just trying to keep ourselves safe. It's done out of protection, but it can take over our lives. And our self-focus can be crippling. We belittle ourselves and discount everything and criticize ourselves beyond belief, often taking on the voice of our abuser. Both ourselves and others receive this constant criticism or judgment, because as within, so without. So if you're projecting all of this judgment and criticism on yourself, then inadvertently, you're going to have to spew that out onto others as well. Unfortunately, we don't have any grace for ourselves or for others, but we are all human and we all make mistakes. We have to allow ourselves the grace and the space to be human. To be human means to make mistakes, right? In my corporate world, we did product testing. We would always have 3 phases of testing because inherently there is always human error. No one is capable of perfection. Again, another trauma response is perfectionism, right? So let's learn to laugh at our faux pas. Let's take a bow when we trip and forgive ourselves for the bad day. Are you ready to give yourself some grace? Notice that little trauma voice that always beats you up. No amount of negative thinking is ever beneficial for anyone for any reason, ever, without exception, right? It's common for us to focus on things that are less than, right? Maybe we feel less than, or we will choose jobs that are even below our capacity or capabilities. We'll stay in our comfort zone because it makes it feel safe, even though we know we deserve better. Of course, coping mechanisms are going to be necessary when we live like this, because we can't tolerate feeling all of this pain, the pain of staying the same, pain of stagnation, and that crippling feeling that it might not ever change. So we have to numb out on food and working out and shopping. Those are the socially acceptable coping mechanisms. Most commonly in our spiritual community, it's hermit mode, right? We say that it's under the guise of healing, perpetual healing. How many of you have been stuck in that phase? I know I sure was. Heaven forbid we choose a coping mechanism that actually adds to our shame. Some of us are even driven further into hiding because we lean on a coping mechanism that we feel bad about. Maybe sometimes it's substance abuse or social media addiction, or others that don't need to be named here, right? We always find something to beat ourselves up over. So that leads us to a place of having to make ourselves feel better. Sometimes it's as simple as overgiving or rescuing others. Somehow we end up in our wounded state. And I don't say somehow because I don't understand it, but it's interesting how it's almost the opposite of what we should be doing is what we end up doing. We think that the things that we should do to make ourselves feel better are the very things that keep us stuck or perpetuate the wounding. And another challenge is that we attract other wounded, codependent people as partners, because that desire to feel better about ourselves drives us to overgive or try to help people. Caretaking, again, another trauma response. No matter how hard we try, it can seem so difficult to overcome these challenges, these negative loops. We struggle to maybe even look people in the eye. or maybe we apologize for things that we didn't need to. Oftentimes we can become hyper defensive in the face of criticism, and indefinite social isolation is again hidden by, spirituality. Maybe we like to meditate and astral travel, and we're just out here instead of being grounded in the body, grounded in this realm where we chose to incarnate, right? The very thing that will actually heal us is the thing that we run from. That connection is a critical component in healing. And that's why it can be very difficult for us to heal when we get stuck in isolation. It doesn't mean you have to go out and engage with every single person, but one person who can be there for you, who can see you, who can feel with you and work with you and hold you through the hard times. The process of letting go and releasing those traumas and becoming free requires connection. Complex trauma is actually a relational wound. So that's why isolation can be so detrimental. So does any of that sound familiar? Any of those common trauma responses relevant in your life? All of these things stem from a belief of not enoughness, that lack mentality, or the wound of unworthiness. It's that causes us to question our value and worth, right? Otherwise, we will just hide. We don't want people to see that we feel this way. And of course, it is as within, so without. But I do say that carefully because we don't want people to feel blamed, because no one taught you how to do better. This is very reasonable expectations. This is a very reasonable response to what you experienced. And we would have unreasonable expectations if we expected ourselves to have behaved any differently. And what's important now is just recognizing that these behaviors come from subconscious programming. The traumas are housed in the body, and that is the key, is working with the body. Somatic healing therapy is what gets this up and out of the body to remove the blocks. And that's where we can start to embrace the truth of as within, so without. And it's not necessarily, well, it's definitely not your fault what you experienced, but it is our responsibility to address the healing and to pull ourselves out of this space. We want to remember that all is mind, and that we, in our limiting beliefs, accidentally taught people how to treat us. And so that also means that we get to rewrite the program. That when we remove the trauma from our body, we teach people a new way of treating us. And that's where we can finally come to that belief in our value and worth. And certainly it is safe out there in the world. Some people are safe, and we can attract loving partnerships, but we have to wrap our head around. We have to be willing to believe that some people can be safe. Not everyone is unsafe. We don't want to have that black and white thinking, that all or nothing thinking, that the whole world is unsafe and all people are unsafe. That will cause us to become recluse, to hide and to shrink back. So we want to step into that frequency of certainty in our value and worth, certainty in our safety. It's what overrides all things. We are that powerful, and we are the decider. When we declare that we are one with the universe responds. The divine wants us to claim our power and authority that we accidentally gave away. We're asked to use it in conjunction with serving others and helping others at the will of our Creator. We are not going to feel satisfied. We're not going to feel that quench of a thirst. We're not going to be able to quench our thirst if we don't step into the knowing of our power, if we don't claim being the one again. So ask yourself, how can you be the one if you don't believe you are? How can you expect others to respect you if you don't respect yourself? How can you expect others to love you if you don't love yourself? There is tremendous power in belief, and there is tremendous power in decision. And most importantly, the power is in choice. What do you see? What will you choose? Power or fear? Are you ready to become the decider in your life? Taking the reins back and recognizing that sometimes just decision or choice of I'm going to believe that I am the one is not quite enough. We want to embody that belief, and you will feel that knowing in your body. And until then, if we're not able to step into it with just pure conscious choice, that tells us we need to work with the body, right? And remembering that you can't do it alone. The next belief to challenge is the belief that you have to do it all on your own. Again, a very common trauma response. Have you noticed that belief show up in your life? It's all up to me. I'm the only one. I've got to figure it all out. I can't count on anyone. That's the belief of the ego, that we are somehow separate from source. And it is not true. Even if you are completely alone, you're not truly alone. You are one with the divine. And the things that you struggle with are part of the human condition, and they're normal in our society. Many of us struggle with the belief in separation, or that we have to do it alone. But that is what keeps you stuck. We want to see that subconscious pattern and program. We want to recognize that in order to see that, we need the mirror of the other. So you will struggle if you try to do it alone. In fact, your creator has asked you not to. We are asked to come together. We are like collective pieces of a puzzle. We are asked to love each other and to support each other. And most importantly, we are asked to lean on the divine, surrender to the divine, ask for help, give it up. Let he, she, it, they, them do the heavy lifting for you. Stop trying to do God's job, and stop looking outside of yourself for support or the answers. And I don't want to say you shouldn't look outside of yourself for support. Support is natural and necessary. You should ask for support, but looking outside of yourself, meaning to material things or to gurus who can tell you what your purpose is or to tell you what your blocks are. This should be about empowerment. You have the ability. You do need the other to help you see the subconscious patterns that hide in our blind spots. But once you're able to spot those patterns, there's a stage of empowerment that comes where you say, I can see what's happening here now. No longer is this a subconscious behavior or program. We brought it to consciousness. So then you can see it for yourself, right? We want to put down the belief that we have to struggle alone. We want to stop striving. It's time to rest. We are told that we are to be still and know that I am God, right? That means rest and peace and ease. Lead us to the flow of divine assistance, that there is no one that can do this for us. Again, you need support, but you don't need somebody to do it for you or to tell you how to do it. But we weren't meant to be alone either, right? So you have to ask yourself, are you ready for support? Are you ready to receive the support? Again, receiving can be a very difficult thing for us. We're simply asked to let go, trust and allow, and watch with awe and gratitude as things unfold, right? Hold on just 1 minute. I'm going to check something real quick. Okay, sometimes those live notifications, you can be a little bit scary. I'm like, are we still live? Okay, so we were saying, in order to receive, we have to allow support in. We have to be ready to ask for support. We want to recognize that we're not supposed to do it all on our own, but eventually we will get to a place where we are empowered. And in order to get from stuck to empowered, we do need support. So allow yourself to ask for help. Allow yourself to trust and allow, and watch it with awe and gratitude for how things unfold. It's beautiful when you can start to see that you don't have to struggle, you don't have to strive, you don't have to push or exert a lot of effort to make things happen, right? That we can ease into the beauty and the peace that we were meant to experience by leaning on our brothers and sisters for support when you need it, and recognizing them as your mirror, even if they're not spiritual, right? We want to see everyone as divine and valuable, right? This will help you help show you where you need to heal. So people can be triggering. And when people trigger us, that's actually a gift, that we are afforded the opportunity to see the wounds that are still inside of us when we get triggered. And sometimes, especially in the beginning, that's not awesome. Nobody really wants to be triggered. But as you go through the healing process, you start to recognize, okay, this really got me. This is a big one. So let's go at it. Right. And over time, you'll start to appreciate it and say, all right, there, I see another one. Let's go get it. Right. We want to recognize that those moments of discomfort or triggering, it's just like a child falling down and skinning their knee when they're learning how to walk. We just pick ourselves back up. It's not a big deal. We don't have to beat ourselves up, right? We can allow that to point to our subconscious patterns and help us see with healthy mirrors where we are more powerful together, and where two or more are gathered, there I am in their midst, right? We all grew up in a hall of mirrors, and those people who didn't love us or care for us the way we needed them to reflected back to us an inaccurate mirror or measure of who we are. And it's time now to surround yourself with beautiful, accurate, positive, loving, supportive mirrors. Remember that proximity is power, and entrainment and calibration are key. They are the sum of the people, or you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. So we have to ask ourselves, are you ready to become who you were made to be? Are you ready to realign to your original design? So before I go, I promised you that I would tell you my story. It's part of the process of showing up and being seen. It's still very healing for me to tell the story, even though I don't like it because it's not pretty. But part of healing this wound is recognizing when our brain is not serving us and trying to cause us to hide, to stay safe, right? It believes that there is safety in staying the same, and that does not serve us. So part of the brain strategy is to keep you from looking at the things that hurt you in the past. But as we know, we have to feel it to heal it. So we have to become stronger than the brain and override that desire for cognitive dissonance, right? Look away. And to become leaders, it requires that we have to model what we teach. And I don't necessarily like telling my story because it's kind of gory and messy, but I do it for you. Even though it makes me nervous to tell the story, it is pretty raw, and it's a hard story to tell. But I know that as we see others doing the same, right? As you become the one, you give others permission to be the one too, right? So that's what this is all about. And I also want you to see that it's possible, that if anybody can go from where I came from to where I am now, you can too, right? So I grew up in a middle-class home, seemingly normal, according to my perspective at a very young age. I had 2 siblings and a dog named Cowboy, and we had all the things that we needed physically, but emotionally, our needs were not met almost at all. My father was a pastor, and later on, I discovered he's also a narcissist. We were frequently told that we were sinners and shameful, and that we should beg for forgiveness, hoping we would be allowed into heaven if we were lucky, right? If God didn't come back at the wrong time and we had just committed a sin, right? It was only possible to suffer in that type of environment. In fact, suffering was encouraged. And we basically were taught to self-sacrifice and just tolerate a very painful life. Many times I was berated for being a sinner or a bad person. That became my keyword. And I want to point out keywords because they're kind of if somebody says these words or even inadvertently points to this being the interpretation, it can be very triggering, and it will conjure up those traumas in your body. So your keywords are something to kind of look out for. And for me, those keywords were I'm bad, right? Because we were always told that there was something wrong with what we were doing or who we inherently were, is kind of the message we received. So that became my foundation of the unworthiness belief. And on top of the constant barrage of messaging that told us we were not enough, there was additional emotional, physical, sexual abuse all throughout my childhood. So needless to say, I did not feel safe, seen, heard, cared for, or loved, let alone safe, even though I already said that. I was lost, anxious, depressed, desperately searching for a way to escape, feeling trapped in my own life and in my own head, and wanting to escape my body. This, again, is another reason why we tend to have a very unhealthy relationship with our body, is because of the message that there's something wrong with us, right? So we embody that belief, and the body seems to be the source of pain when really the body was not to blame, right? So for me, I had a lot of ruminations. I would really just mull over the the bad things that kept happening, trying to figure out how to make it stop. I felt tortured, and I really wanted to live a normal life, even though that's a myth. But it seemed like everybody else was living a normal life and they were happy. And I wanted a loving and supportive family. I wanted friends and life experiences and the freedom to be a kid. We were kept within a few 100 feet of our church because we lived in a house next to it. And I went to school in that church, and it was just basically crossing the sidewalk. There was no outside world for me. And it felt like my life was so heavy. It was like a 10,000 ton weight of feeling trapped and just not deserving. Right. And it really was exacerbating. It just felt exhausted and fatigued at a very young age. It was soul crushing, really. And that fear of not being lovable, or maybe never even being loved, became so intolerable. I couldn't deal with it. And I remember in my teenage years, I wanted to exit. And that, of course, with most things, when we finally get on the other side into the healing, we can appreciate these experiences. But in the moment, I didn't quite appreciate that this was causing me to be very curious about what I was seeking. I was really trying to understand what's missing. What do I really truly want and need? And as a very young child, I recognized what I wanted was peace. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to feel safe. And I never wanted to worry again about having to feel this pain. I wanted to be able to truly rest, to be valued and valuable. But what I discovered was no matter what I did, no matter how good of a person I became, no matter how much I self-sacrificed or gave myself away, no matter how much I conformed or became passive or easygoing, people continued to hurt me, and the pain did not stop. And I couldn't understand, why did I keep attracting painful situations into my life? Depression and anxiety haunted me constantly. But it wasn't until I reached the deepest dark night of the soul that really shook me to my core. And I, at that point, was in my mid-20s, had just come out of another relationship with another narcissist, and I became pregnant by accident. It was my worst fear. I was looking forward to age 27 as if it was going to be the most beautiful, magical time of my life, before astrology and understanding that's also your Saturn return. But because of that experience at 27 years old, I decided that I was damaged goods. And that seemingly perfect age of 27 was, in my mind at the time, destroyed. And I feared that no one was ever going to love me. And I really could not have been any more lost in my ruminations and the monkey mind, or the hamster wheel of thought, trying to figure out, what do I do now? I was desperately trying to understand, what did I do to deserve this life? Why didn't my ex love me? Why didn't God love me? Why was I not enough for someone to love and care for? How could people be so cold and heartless to me when all I wanted was love? I was a prisoner in my own mind and in my own life, and every ounce of my heart and my body ached with the pain of knowing that I couldn't escape this life. I wanted to quit, and I wanted to give up. But at that time, I wasn't willing to hurt my child, and I wasn't willing to leave him. And so one day, a beautiful friend noticed the support that is necessary. She said to me, and this was before I really realized my passion for psychology. She was a psychologist, and she suggested I see a therapist. And I got lucky. The first one I found was, actually, I think it was the second one. I actually did have, I did go to one guy who was like falling asleep on me, which was really disheartening. But the second guy was amazing, and I got really lucky. And he gave me a book that changed my life. It really helped me open my eyes to what was happening in my head. And before that time, my first 27 years of my existence, I had never been aware of my thoughts. Can you imagine that? I had no idea what was going on inside my head. All of these thoughts, 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And I think like 70% of them are repeated. And I had no idea. I had never been conscious of my own thoughts. It was as if I was living in a dark room and someone had just turned the light bulb on. So I began to dig into spirituality and ancient wisdom and personal development. I just felt like, aha, finally, I understand. This is why I've been struggling. There's so much more that I wasn't able to see before. And I finally was so excited to dig in and understand how to play the game called life. I found myself asking the question, like, why didn't they teach us this in school? I've said that more times than I can count in my life. So we need to understand how to play the game called life requires that we understand we are creators. We are creating all the time through our thoughts and our vibration. And learning this was a game changer for me. I learned how to change my life from the inside out, or at least I started to understand how to do that. It was in quite a few more years and quite a few more lessons before I could say that I finally had enough awareness to step into full-time practice of it, because this is a lifelong journey. But learning how to change from a psychological and scientific perspective finally made happiness seem possible, right? And that's when I began to consume every ounce of information I could possibly find, not only ancient wisdom, but also psychology and neuroscience and biochemistry. My current therapist, joked, he said, "You have a personal master's in these fields," which is funny because I have since decided to go get a real master's in these, not that it's not real, but anyways, my point is my life drastically improved. It changed dramatically. And for the first time in my life, I was actually enjoying my life. I leveled up in my career many times, and I was working for Fortune 500 companies. I broke through the 6-figure barrier. I achieved the highest levels of prestige in my field at the time. I was managing a billion-dollar portfolio. I even got married for the first time and had 2 more beautiful children. We bought our dream home. We had everything you could ask for, all the cars, all the things. And then I realized that those are the things that the world defines as measures of success. I still had not achieved my highest level of peace and happiness that I was looking for. And my soul knew that there was something more. I had always been a seeker. And even as a young child, I would stare at the stars and know that there was something more to life. I was here to do something that matters. And yet there was a part of me that questioned, like, do I deserve more? Like, how ungrateful. Shouldn't you be happy with what you have? I felt really ungrateful for not being satisfied. And I asked myself the question, what's wrong with you? Are you a bad person because you feel this way? Why can't I just be happy? I was so grateful for what I had, but at the same time, I was even more grateful for that strong sense of knowing that told me there was something more. And it took a few more years for me to get ready, but I did eventually leave the corporate world before I finally did it. And I did even try to go back once. It did go back once, but of course I discovered that that wasn't right for me. And my soul urge would not let me rest until I stepped into my purpose. And so I finally quit. I quit twice, but this most recent time, a few years ago now, when I quit, I stepped into what I thought was going to be a business of helping people step into their life purpose. But what I discovered very quickly is the people that were drawn to me were in need of healing trauma, and trauma suppresses purpose. That wound of unworthiness or not enoughness, it's directly connected to the lack mentality that was holding me back, even when I tried to start my own business and put myself out there the first time. That's why I had to go back. I could not stand, or like it was a nervous system response, right? That somatic response, it's called a somatic flashback. Your body freaks out when you want to step into being seen or risking judgment or criticism or rejection, all the things that are required to have an online business. Those things were my greatest fear. And I didn't think I could survive. At times I thought I was going to swallow my tongue. But over time, I grew to know that there was no other option. I simply could not live in the pain of ignoring my soul's calling. And eventually I learned how to do it. I learned about trauma spotting and somatic healing therapies, somatic experiencing, energy healing, and it has been amazing. It has been life-changing. So when I realized how life-changing it was, that's when I realized I had to share it with the world. And even though I was terrified by the possible outcome, I had to do it. I had to step into my purpose. I have to be here for you. I gave up the big, beautiful, brand new home and the fancy car. I walked away from it all because the desire to prevent someone from feeling that pain is so much stronger than a fancy car, right? And I have to acknowledge that when I did, it was a huge leap of faith that I I filed for divorce and quit my job at the same time. I walked away from everything, not knowing how I would survive or how I would feed my kids or how I would pay rent. But the one thing I did know was that I was on the right path and that I had a purpose. I knew that my Creator loved me enough to provide what I needed. And I knew that when I followed my purpose, that would be the way through. That would be the way to find that true peace and happiness that I was seeking. And so when I did step into my purpose, oh my gosh, I began to taste the ecstasy I never even knew was possible. That moment of like, this is the thing I've been seeking. This is what I've been looking for. I absolutely love helping people and the process of researching and creating videos and identifying new ways and new strategies. Those moments when I am in a trauma spotting session. And again, I have to just say that I feel so honored because it is so profound what moves through you when you are doing what you are made to do. That full body tingle. I wish if you could just feel into me right now, because I'm feeling it in my body. And that's the only way to explain it, because there are no words to express the full body yes and rightness and profound truth of this is who I'm made to be. This is what I am made for. There is no denying that. I don't care if the world melts down and people stop hiring me, I still would have to do this thing because it is so profoundly right. And you have this too. That everything that you have done so far, look, I'm like teary because it's so beautiful. It's so amazing that Source moves through you and you feel so close to and one with your Creator is just an undeniable rightness about it, right? So for me, I kind of felt like, how am I going to use trauma healing and corporate experience and all these things? It's, I think Marie Forleo talks about being multi-passionate. It doesn't seem to go together, but you don't realize how Source has got everything lined up for you. And all of the knowledge that you gain on your journey ends up serving this purpose. And it's no longer about you. It's only about helping others find their purpose. And the beautiful thing is it's not self-sacrificial. You don't have to give up your desires. In fact, it ends up being better than you ever could have imagined because you let go of your desires. Again, some of this stuff just seems so backwards. You wouldn't think. It's very often the opposite of what you would think. So just be willing to accept that. I like to say that when I get guidance and it seems illogical, that's actually one of the indicators that I'm on the right path, because Source doesn't work in logic. It's not linear, right? So again, helping people heal trauma and that not enoughness wound is so important. And that's my purpose. But I want you to know that you have a purpose just like that is going to help others too. And it's so beautiful to be able to be guided by Source. What came through for me, I now call trauma spotting. It was very much Source led, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So there are gifts and talents that will come online for you that you didn't know you had, but cannot present themselves until you've fully stepped into that path or into surrender, into faith and trust. And so trauma spotting was born through Source guidance, and it is profoundly easy and effortless, and it shatters through that glass ceiling of unworthiness, right? Trauma held me back, and that's how I know what is needed for others who are experiencing something similar, right? And that's when I finally healed my trauma, that's when I finally was able to step into my purpose and live a life that I truly loved. And this allows me to be able to live an intuitive life where I get to let joy be my compass, and I feel more whole than I have ever felt in my entire life. Shedding all of those trauma responses that I thought were character traits, and finally realigning to my original design. I was able to let go of those things that I thought I needed for protection. Those things actually made me who I was, but they were inauthentic. And I was finally able to discover that we are perfectly imperfect for our purpose and made to shine brightly more than ever before. And as we become more powerful, you allow others and give them the permission to do the same. So best of all, you are no longer afraid. Not afraid to be seen, not afraid to rock the boat, not afraid to own your power, right? You learn to be comfortable with making other people uncomfortable. And when you create that unshakable foundation of confidence, you can actually, even in a silly little way, have gratitude and say, You're welcome if I made you uncomfortable, because that means that it is the gift of helping you see the wound that needs to be healed. Right. And it's crazy how this allows you to be almost unfazed by life, right? Not to mention living in true abundance, right? It's so beautiful to have that freedom to be with your family, to go pick up your kids after school, to go wherever you want to, whenever you need to. And there's nothing like being able to work poolside in the summer while the kids play with their friends, right? There is a level of freedom and abundance that we were born to experience. And that's why I have to share this with the world, because this is the truth of who we were made to be. So we have to understand how to heal the wounds that hold us back so we can step into this. And it will be life-changing for you, but it will also be life-changing for the world. And that is what allows those gifts to come online, is stepping into that freedom. So when I combine my passion for psychology and neuroscience and personal development and spirituality with helping people, that's when it all clicked. Who would have thought, right? And there was such an immense sense of joy and rightness that washed over me. That was the thing that I had been searching for. And I know that you can feel this too. I knew that there was more to life. And I suspect that you also have that feeling, because that knowing that overcomes your body when you are living your purpose is so powerful and so strong that your soul will continue to drive you towards it until you step into it. And the beautiful thing is, when you finally get there, it's like a natural high that is indescribable. It's like an out-of-body experience. And again, that rightness cannot be denied. This is how we can truly access those highest levels of joy and bliss. And it's not just good enough, right? We have to tell ourselves, stop telling ourselves the lie that life is just good enough, right? That just barely surviving, it's playing on that unworthiness wound, or it's coming from that unworthiness wound. And it causes us to ask, what's wrong with me? Why am I not content with the way things are? When you start to taste life with purpose, you will know why. This is what you've been searching for all along. And it doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, but it is absolutely undeniably worth it. Creating your dream life is an evolution of time. It will take time, and you will grow into it while you build your life, right? So the building of it shapes and molds you. It's like the ultimate level up. I like to joke, it's like ascension on steroids. So you have to ask yourself, are you ready to level up, right? The life purpose path is ascension on steroids. So be prepared. Don't ask for it unless you're ready for it. But if you have come to that place, again, like I mentioned yesterday, of saying enough is enough, I cannot tolerate anymore, I've had enough, we've got to shift and change, then it only takes one moment to step into it. It only takes one yes. So I want you to look back at this moment and remember that this was the moment that everything changed. If you've come to that place where you say, I'm ready, then this is the moment, and you can do it now. It's important to recognize that nobody can do the things that you can do, and only you know when it's time for you. So if you make that decision, there isn't anything that can stop you. So ask yourself, are you ready? It doesn't mean there won't be moments of doubt. It doesn't mean that you won't wonder if you can hold it or still do it. When you realize that the energy that you need is inside of you and it's already there, it's so much easier to tap back into it. And if we do a trauma spotting session together, which by the way, I usually offer everyone at least one free session, you'll get a sense, you'll feel that feeling. You'll know. Most people do. I won't make a promise that I can do it for everybody on the first try, but most people get a sense of, this is what we're searching for. This is wholeness. This is coming back home. This is the peace that I've been searching for, right? And I just want you to know, I told you my story because I want you to feel like this is possible for you. I want people to understand that if it's possible for me, it's possible for anyone. At the lowest point in my experience, I was living in my boyfriend's trailer, and all we had was white bread and Kool-Aid with no sugar. It could not have gotten much worse. So if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. And when you find that person to calibrate to, when you find that person that you fall in love with or you resonate, who has done what you need to do or what you want to do, when they feel like home to you, there is nothing that can stop you. So I want to make sure that you humanize me as much as possible. And remember, I was right where you were at one point. Imagine that I'm just sitting in your living room or in your car with you, and that there is something between us, that we're like sisters, right? If you can see me, or if you can see yourself in me, then something will shift inside of you. And I want you to feel so comfortable that we are like sisters, that we're just having this conversation so that we can collapse time and create your new life on hyperspeed through calibration. And together we can walk through the journey of your transformation, right? Feel me as that girl who struggled just like you do, so that we can do this together. No one tells us what we can do. And that's the beauty of it. They can't tell us when or how or on what timeline. It's our job to be the decider, because no one has access to your internal compass. It is our job to be our own hero. And it's not the grand gestures that shape you. It happens in the micro moments of life. It's the time to claim it. And when you claim it, then it is for you. So if you're ready to do this, if you've made this commitment to say this out loud, right? Repeat after me, right? I decide here and now, I am the one. I am one with the one, and I am claiming my birthright. I am committed to reclaiming the lost parts of myself. I am committed to becoming whole again. I am committed to stepping into my purpose, and I'm committed to being of service and creating a new earth. I am committed to knowing my oneness with the divine. I am committed to healing my trauma and stepping into our purpose, my purpose. So from there, it is our job to believe in ourselves, because you are the one and no one else can be you. No one else has your joy compass available to them. No one else can feel the full body yes within their body. Only you can. It is your deck of cards, and you get to decide how you want to play them. So imagine if in just a few short years from now, you are the one that can make people feel like they're the one. We are not less valuable because we struggle. We are not less valuable because we have fear. And we are not less valuable because we're just getting started. You don't have to prove your value and worth before you can get started. You are already worthy. So remember, you are the one that does it your way. And when you own your power and you show others how to do the same, that's when everything gets to be amazing. That's when you get to truly be who you are, fully in your power. And that's when your world becomes a different place. So the next step is to quiet your mind and to connect to source and ask for guidance on your next right step. The key is balanced action and guidance. Play Marco Polo with God, right? Are you ready? So ask a question and then take the guidance that you receive, right? So if you're ready to get started today, then definitely join us for the More Than Enough Mastermind. We are starting next week. It's going to be amazing. Otherwise, we do have one more day where I'm going to help you walk through the rest of the blocks and what we need to know to move fully into this path, right? Tomorrow, I'll help you identify your life purpose. But before we get to tomorrow, let's have today's activity. So for today's activity, we will want to make a post on what you're committed to. Are you committed to stepping into your purpose? Are you committed to healing your trauma? Are you committed to surrender and faith to the divine? Are you committed to more connection and asking for support, asking for help? Are you committed to overcoming isolation and perpetual hermit mode? What has the first 2 days of this brought to your mind as far as what you need to do? And if you have uncertainty around that, again, you can remain as king by asking the question of the divine, what is my next right step, right? What do I need to commit to? And let that answer come. Remembering that the first answer that comes is your intuition or source guidance. And anything that comes after that is ego or trauma trying to talk you out of it. And for your freebie, once you make that post, again, DM me and let me know that you've done that. And I will send you the future self progression to meet your millionaire self. And that is, again, one of the most common ones next to tomorrow's, which is the Theta Healing for healing abundance blocks. So jump in. Don't forget, if you do all 3 activities, your name gets entered into a hat for a drawing for a free trauma spotting session with me. And tomorrow we're going to cover how to identify your life purpose and make a living doing it. I love you, my friends. Thank you for being here. Again, let me know if you have any questions. I am certainly open to a 4th day for a Q&A. We can do that on Friday, right? Yes. All right. I will talk to you soon.